What's up, summoners? King Blair here. Today we're going to be talking about why no one farms Golem and why you shouldn't farm Golem either unless you're building for one of your favorite, most specific units out there for primarily PvE, and you'll see why in a second. So if you like the video, make sure you like, subscribe, and join the Discord server. Link down in the description. Without further ado, let's get right into the video. So there are two very big things that make Golem not very desirable. First, it's going to be the opportunity cost, and I'll discuss what that is and what that entails and why it's such a big deal. And the second thing is that actual sets you're getting themselves are subpar for the most situations, and we'll talk about why. The only time that attack set is better is if you can already get 350 crit damage naturally without a crit damage set. And the health and defense set are strictly PvE sets, because we'll talk about that in a second. But first, let's start with the first one, the opportunity cost. So if you don't know what that term means, this is something from economics, and it's a term that means essentially when you do something, you don't get something else, right? So for example, let's say you want to go to the movies with your friends, but it's the hunt event weekend that day. If you go to the movie with your friends, that means you don't get to play Epic 7, right? So the opportunity cost of you going to the movies with your friends and having a good time is that you miss out on Epic 7 time. If it's more worth it for you still to go to the movie with your friends, regardless of the opportunity cost of not getting to play Epic 7, then it's a good decision, right? So when you start looking more specifically to Epic 7, let's say you have 100 energy. If you have 100 energy, the opportunity cost of you farming Golem is going to be that you don't get to farm Wyvern, you don't get to farm Asimach Hunt, you don't get to farm all the other hunts, right? That's the opportunity cost because you're trying to get gear and you're doing Golem versus the other hunts. For Golem, there are very specific units that this set's go on. It's less than 5% units, right? Very, very few units. I would argue it's even less, but it's strictly just for PvE, right? Very, very small amounts of gear, and for the most part, it can be replaced by other ones. Whereas for things like Wyvern, the opportunity cost doesn't matter because it's just like, okay, if you do Wyvern, you're getting the best sets that are used for like over 85% of units in this game. Right, so you're getting so much out of it. Yes, you're missing out, for example, on Banshee, on Golem, but does it really matter when almost all your units are going to be using these sets? So it's worth you farming this and losing out on some health sets, right? Same thing with things like Banshee. Yes, you don't get speed gear, right? That's the big one that, because Wyvern's the most worth it, right? That's why Wyvern is life, right? Wyvern 13 should be farming Wyvern 13 all the time, but people still farm Banshee probably like 10% of their time because counter set, there's nothing that compares to this. Right? There's nothing that gives you the effect that counter set does. There's no replacement for counter set, which is why it's still worth it, even though you're missing out on a set that a bunch of units use. It's still pretty unique. Same thing with lifesteal set and to an extent resist set as well, right? So there's still some good stuff that makes it worth farming Banshee. And then the only hunt that you can compare to Golem would be Asimach Hunt, because Asimach Hunt only has one set that is really, really good, right? Rage and Unity, I would almost say, are as bad as the Golem set. But the immunity set itself is worth farming this hunt because it is such a valuable item that even though you're missing out on speed, you're missing out on counter sets, you're missing out on all this other stuff, you're getting one of the most powerful sets in the game with the immunity set for PvP, right? So it's absolutely worth it to farm Asimach Hunt over the other ones. The opportunity cost is worth it. When you look at Golem, it's just not, right? You're not getting anything that's going to progress your account. You're not getting anything that's unique. And that's the next part we are going to be talking about, is the actual gear sets themselves can be easily replaced and should be replaced and are just naturally weak. So to understand why, the way you have to think of the set is not with what the set gives you, but what does it take off of your gear, right? So for example, let's say you decided to go with the attack set. The attack set, if we look at substats, the substats for attack, it gives you 8% maximum in a roll, right? If we look at the substat, this is on the Discord in the general tab, so make sure you join the Discord down below. But if we look at the set, right, attack, HP, defense, and critical hit damage, they all give 8%. Crit rate can get the maximum of 5%, I believe, right? So crit rate gets a maximum of 5% on a roll, right, on a substat, and that's the highest it can start at, right? But when you look at Golem, let's actually look at some attack set pieces. The only reason I farm Golem is if I need Reforged mats, and that's the only time I did it, when I get a good piece from World Boss, right? I didn't farm Golem for any of these pieces. So all these pieces were from World Boss and for free events. So when we look at attack set, you get 35%. If we look at the roll that you can get on a gear, to get 35% attack, that's less than 5 rolls, right? That's less than 5 rolls. It's a little bit over 4, but it's less than 5 rolls, right? You're getting less than 5 rolls on a substat for this. When we look at something for like Banshee, right, that can easily replace attack set for destruction set, this gives you 40%. This is equivalent to 5 rolls. You're missing out on almost a full roll of gear if you use attack set over crit damage set. That's unacceptable, right? It's just strictly worse. The only time that attack set is better than critical hit damage set is if you have a unit that can get to 350 crit damage without using a crit damage set, and even then, it would need to be like an insanely perfect attack piece, right? So for roll value, critical hit damage is strictly better. So you should never be using attack set, pretty much. It should only be crit damage set, unless you have the godliest attack set gear that I've ever seen in my life, and you're able to get 350 critical hit damage without breaking the bank, right? And having a roll over for attack. Then when we look at things like health and defense set, both of these only give 15%. Again, that is less than 2 rolls. That is strictly less. And who uses these normally, right? Usually supports. And what do supports also want? Effectiveness, effect resistance, or for DPSs, let's say for tanks like Crow, what do they like to have? Usually effectiveness or something like immunity, right? So you're taking away immunity to put this, but even if you put this over the effectiveness or FRS sets, this is less than 2 rolls. Whereas when we look at something like the effectiveness set, this is over 2 rolls. When we look at the critical hit set, so think of Maya, right? Maya, you're like, okay, what if I want to put my Maya? She doesn't need immunity, or my Dilibet, right? Maya and Dilibet don't need immunity set. Why can't I just give them health set or defense set? Well, crit set is also over 2 rolls. So why would you give them defense and health when you can easily get that off your substats? And you get more rolls, right? Crit rate, these sets are just strictly better in a substat sense, right? So there's no reason for you to use the health or defense unless it's a strictly PvE unit. Like Tama, yeah, she uses health set, right? I'm not going to tell you says Tama doesn't use health set. Yeah, Tama uses health set. General Perkins in Wyvern, does he use health set? Yes. Are there sometimes some really good health pieces that I get that I put on units like my Crow? Yes. But those pieces are like the most insane pieces in the world. I'm not farming Golem for them. World Boss is giving them to me. And I get the Reforge mats through the expeditions. So you can see, just roll value-wise, it's bad. Think of Ken, right? A lot of people put attack set on Ken. I do not know why people do this. You're getting 35% for 4, right? It's a little bit over 4 rolls. You can get the exact same effect by using 4 crit sets. Because if you put 4 crit sets, you're essentially at 5 rolls. And you're getting the crit rate up. So why even use attack set? The only unit that could potentially use this is Ken, but he also wants FRS, and FRS just gives you strictly better value. Crit rate set, if you're giving him a crit set, strictly better value, right? So it's just the value of it's terrible, the amount of units you can use it is terrible. That's why there's 0 reason for you to farm Golem. If you're farming Golem, you're wasting resources. You're wasting time that you could have been used spending other places. And if you're someone that's hard stuck, this is probably why if you're farming Golem, right? Because if you're not farming Wyvern where you're actually getting the competitive sets you can use that are just strictly better both in sets and in actual aspects. So that is why no one farms Golem, and why pretty much the only time you see someone have a Golem set is for a PvE unit. And very, very fringe units that you can just get the pieces off of World Boss, right? So that is why no one farms Golem. You just are getting terrible roll value. The gear you're getting is terrible, and you're missing out on farming actual good hunts for very fringe uses, right? The opportunity cost is not worth it, so don't farm Golem. But that is all I got. If you disagree with me, type down in the comments. I'll be free. It's okay to have an opinion. It's okay if your opinion may not be right. But if you can justify your opinion, and it's something that, okay, I didn't see it that way, then we can have a discussion, right? So maybe you think it's worth it. Maybe you're like, Golem is the way to go. So we can talk about it down in the comments. But that's all I got for you guys today. I will see y'all next time. Peace.